If you build it, he will come. Well, we're going to be building something big on this new episode of Totally 80s and 90s Recall. What's happening? If you're new to this show, we couldn't be more excited that you found us. And for our returning listeners, it's awesome to have you back. Well, if you love all things 80s and 90s, from music and movies to television and pop culture, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, David, joined as always by, you know him, you love him, my good friend, Rob.
Hey, I am not an animal.
Yeah?
Do you know that movie?
I am not an animal.
Yeah, what's that from?
I think I should know what that's from, but off the top of my head, I'm not catching it.
Elephant Man, 1980.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a quote, I guess. I haven't seen that movie.
Yeah. Well,
so
I'm not an animal.
I'm not an animal.
And the rest of it is I'm a human being.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just for all the listeners out there.
We've driven away from hellos.
Yeah. Now we're going to go random movie quotes.
Random movie quotes.
That's right.
Hey, keeps people on their toes,
That's
right?
They don't know what's coming.
That's the best thing to do. Keep them guessing.
That's right.
Got to keep them guessing. On this podcast, Rob and I will travel back to the 2 decades that shaped not only our lives, but influenced the world for generations that followed. Each episode, we will develop and discuss lists of selected topics, or perhaps identify a significant event, movie, or whatever we recall from growing up in the 80s and 90s, providing some killer memories, fun, and nostalgia along the way. And with all that, Rob, go ahead and tell us what topic we'll be covering for this episode.
So we're going to do something a little different. So for our listeners, just to give you a heads up, this will not feature sound clips.
No
movie clips. We actually aren't talking about music or movies. We'll be talking about, we're calling this a time capsule episode. So we're picking 10 things that we would put in a time capsule that would describe the 80s.
Yes, for future generations.
Yes.
So if somebody cracked this thing open, once they looked at everything we're going to select to go inside of it, they would be like, oh, I have a good idea of what the 80s were like.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Well, and just so everyone also understands, the order on this doesn't matter. We're just putting 10 items each in there. So There's no number 1 to number 10. One item is not more important than the other. The order doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So.
And we're not doing cuts, honorable mention.
Just no cuts, honorable mention, just 10 things each. So how did you decide on what you were going to put in said time capsule?
Yeah. So in my pre-production work, taking lots of notes, and then what I ended up doing is I ended up coming up with 10 categories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because as I started to organize my notes, I came up with 10 categories. I thought if you picked something from that category, you could get a pretty good picture of what the 80s was like, or any decade, right?
Yeah.
So navigation or transportation, communication or technology, entertainment, health and fitness, toys, food, fashion or clothing, or fashion, clothing, and accessories, education, designs or styles, and then cultural icons, so people.
Oh.
So if you came up with something
from stuff a person into this time capsule?
Yes.
I'm sure they'll like that.
Yes. So I looked through those 10 things.
Yeah. Well, I did not put that much thought into this. I made no categories. I literally I thought 10 cool things from when I remember being a kid in the 80s. So maybe your list will be a lot more. Yours would be the list they'd go for the Smithsonian historical stuff, and then mine's just like some kind of whatever that guy was doing over there, right? So, well, for our listeners, these 10 items we're both going to put in, these are not going to be everyone's 10 items, but that's what's fun. Our intent is for you to say out loud, how could you not include blank inside the time capsule? I mean, that's what's great about the 80s. There were so many different kinds of things that have so many different kind of meanings to so many different kinds of people. But hey, maybe some of the items we've chosen you'll also agree on, and then some you'll be like, how could you leave that out? And I think that's good.
No, as I was making this list, that I found myself doing the same thing, going, "Oh, I forgot about that, and I forgot about that," and talking to people and going, "Hey, what describes the '80s to you?" And then they would,
well, there's so many things.
They would say that, and or they'd give me suggestions. I'm like, "Oh, I totally forgot about that," and so then that changed my list. So.
Yeah, I fully acknowledge that the 10 things I have may not be the 10 cool things to any one other person, but maybe one or two will fall into a category. But that's the cool thing about it. And finding 10 was hard because, like you just said, you're talking about an entire decade and a lot of things happened in the 80s. So how do you pin that down, right?
Yeah, I did have a cutting room floor for this one, and there was a lot. And that's why I had to come up with some way of organizing my thoughts because I had too many things floating around. So.
You have to be organizational. Me, I just throw it at the wall and let's just see what happens. Right?
No, that's not true.
That's probably not true. No. Let's hope that's not true. Otherwise,
you're the planner. You're the pre-production guy.
Somebody's got to do it.
That's right.
Come running in here. You're looking for pens and your notes and everything else. I've been sitting here ready for like half an hour.
Well,
but the categories are good. And I did not successfully navigate that. So should have thought of that. Well, let's get together and see what kind of radical and tubular things we can find to show future generations how bodacious the 1980s truly were. Well, I pity the fool that doesn't like your number 10. So, hey, Rob, let's party and get this thing started.
All right. My first one comes from the category of navigation and transportation. So I picked, now granted, this would not fit in a time capsule, but it would be, I'm going to go with it's a picture of, and I know that might be bending the rule a little bit.
No, that's fine.
But a 1981 Ford Fairmont station wagon.
Oh, yes, a station wagon.
Right? So station wagon, but we specifically had a 1981 Ford Fairmont we had forever. Manual crank windows, vinyl seats, AM radio, no FM.
No.
The windows in the back only rolled down halfway. Nice. No AC. It was like the only car that our family purchased new. It made umpteen trips from Portland to Sioux Falls.
Did the back window roll down?
Like no, the very it didn't back have window? Nope. It wasn't. No. But I remember we were right on the cusp of like where riding in the back was no longer allowed.
Oh.
But I do remember riding in the back.
Yeah, we did it anyway.
And so some point in my young early 80s life, we couldn't ride in the back anymore, but I do remember riding in the back.
In our 80s life, they also made us start wearing seatbelts all the time. So those were before the days of having TVs or Walkmans or so you were reading a book on those trips between Portland and Sioux Falls. You had to look out the window. Stare out the window.
You had to be, being the dad's navigator was when you had to sit up front with dad when we were driving, that was killer. But the story I was going to tell is 1 year we were driving back to Sioux Falls in this white 81 Ford Fairmont. And my dad had picked me up from scout camp.
Yeah.
My mom and my sister, I think, had flown back. I don't quite remember the details. But it was my dad and I in the car by ourselves. We were somewhere between Portland and Sioux Falls. So I'm going to guess it was like middle of South Dakota. I'm a fidgeter by nature, so I dig through the glove compartment. And my mom used to carry a thing of mace.
Nice.
On her keychain.
Did you spray your dad with it?
No, it was worse. So she had taken it off her keychain and put it in the glove compartment. So I'm digging through the glove compartment. And little did I know it had leaked.
Oh.
All over the glove compartment. I didn't know it was.
That can't be good.
So I quit my fidgeting and digging through the glove compartment, and I proceed to rub my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
I think I might have picked my nose, put my fingers in my mouth.
That's a bad day.
So the next thing I know, I have proceeded to pepper spray myself in the passenger seat of my dad's 81 Ford Fairmont as we're going down the freeway. And
did he have any sympathy for you?
I didn't tell him.
Oh, okay.
I had to play it off.
That's impossible.
And so I
when
the
your
window
eyes have
rolled
been all
down.
red.
Oh my gosh, it was the worst.
Okay.
But anyway, that's my number 10.
Yeah, that
something related to like station wagon transportation. Riding in the back of the truck with stuff like that. Those are things we can't do anymore.
No, nobody does that. And station wagons definitely are a huge identifier of the 1980s. Now it's SUVs, but then it was.
But even then, I will tell you, as a family we have a family of 5, 3 kids. There was a time trying to find rig cars anymore.
Oh yeah,
that are built for big families.
They don't.
They just don't make them as much. Yeah. So anyway,
cars were bigger back then.
Yeah. So there you go.
Good pick. My first pick going into the item or into the time capsule is a VHS copy of Fast Times at Ridgemont High with a VCR. That way you can watch it. This movie to me screams early 80s. It's got the mall, teenagers. They're wearing popped polo shirt collars, piano key neckties. It's got a great soundtrack, early 80s, some late 70s songs, but a lot of great music. And the slang used by Spicoli with "Hey Bud" and "Let's Party," they take you right back to the early 80s. And of course, if you've seen the movie, Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool. I mean,
oh yes,
what future generation wouldn't like that? That would just be that part of every VHS copy of that tape. I think is worn out by this point, right?
One of the most paused.
Oh yes.
Moments in movie cinema. I think
it is. That, yes, that was one of the best moments of my early childhood. So, but this whole movie just looks like the early 1980s, and I think if you watched it, you would get a good idea of what like teenagers and life kind of looked like. So,
no, that's a really good one. I actually, I don't have this in my list. I struggle with having it, but I did have it on my cutting room floor. Was a VCR with a VHS tape.
Yeah.
Just there's so much we could talk about there. Just the sound of popping the rental video Friday nights, going to the movie store, trying to decide on a movie. It always ended up usually going one for the parents, one for the kids.
Yep.
A lot of time. We were still dating, going on a date, picking a movie.
Yeah,
so yeah. There was a meme floating around. Something about. I used to think my parents did Friday pizza nights because they were fun. Now I know it's because they were tired.
Yeah, yeah.
And now as a parent, I go, oh yeah, let's just get a pizza. And now it's not rent a movie; it's get it off of Netflix. Or
it's so much easier now.
Stream it or whatever. But it's the same idea though. It's like I don't.
Well, you stream it. Not, like if you want to watch a movie now, you just watch it.
Yeah.
When you're saying you go to the video store, you go to the video store. You were hoping that the video you want was there because they'd have all those copies, and then of course you'd lift it up and there'd be no tape behind it. So you'd go search through the the return bin and see if you could get anything out of that. Yeah. I think and I picked a specific movie. You could probably pick anyone, but to me, Fast Time screams 1980s. So and
good.
I just want future generations to be able to see Phoebe Cates coming out of the pool.
Yep.
So
just to add to that, currently in the U.S., there are no major brick and mortar retailers stocking VHS home video releases. That is gone by the way of the dinosaur.
That is the least surprising thing you've said on our podcast.
But then I did read in January of 2023, it was reported that VHS tapes were once again becoming valuable collector's items.
Of course.
Collectors.
Yeah. Are they going to say that it was just like vinyl for records? Oh, this is the original way to watch it. Because I can tell you, movies look way better now. So we can have that argument all day.
Yeah. That's true. True.
All right, what's your next item?
All right, my next item is from the category of communication and technology. So I had a ton, but the one that I landed on is a phone book.
Nice. Phone book, perfect.
Phone book or the Yellow Pages, as they were called, right?
There were two. You could have a white page and a yellow page.
Oh, that's right. There was a white page.
Yeah.
Now obsolete. They just don't make them.
Yeah.
But once upon a time, if you wanted to find a good restaurant, here's the process. If you wanted to go out for dinner with a girl, you don't know the restaurant, you had to look up the restaurant in the phone book.
Yeah.
You had to call the restaurant and ask about the menu, availability, reservations. And then you had no way of knowing the average person's thought on the place. So now you Google it.
Yep.
You check it. You look at feedback, ratings, how many stars.
Yep.
You didn't know that.
Nope. It was word of mouth.
So there was a intentional interaction with this going places.
Yeah.
What if you wanted to call your crush?
Oh yeah.
What if you wanted to simply make a childish prank? There was no swiping left or right. There's no FaceTime, no instant messaging or texting. You had to physically pick up the phone. You had to dial a number.
Yeah.
that you either had to look up or work to get.
Oh, yeah.
Like you either had to get it from a friend or you had to get up the guts to go ask her for the number.
Oh, right?
Yeah. Required courage, awkward moment. It was exciting. And then we remembered phone numbers. We knew them.
Of course we did. Now nobody knows a phone number.
653-5419. That was my phone number growing up in Milwaukee, Oregon.
Nice.
Forever. And we actually changed it after that. So that was our original one.
Yeah.
Today I couldn't tell you a number.
Nope.
The stat said there's 74% of Americans have internet access at home. So it's easy just to get online, find a phone number, find a place, find an address. You Google it on your phone.
Find anything.
And with the Google, then you find the rating, right? Wouldn't eat here again, 2 stars 100%. Or whatever. So then you go, next one. So I go to the next one. So anyway, something to show people what it was like in the 80s to communicate. It was different. Yeah, it wasn't as easy.
They would look and go, this looks psychotic, actually. Yeah. But yeah. And if your crush had a common last name, good luck with that. And then if they took the steps, which you had to take the steps to unlist yourself, then they weren't even in the phone book. But yeah, the phone book that they built a whole comedy show around it, the Jerky Boys, where they called random numbers out of a phone book. So, well, that's a good one. Not fun to read, but a good one. So that's a good old item for someone to look at way in the future and go, what was going on here?
I don't know that my kids would even know.
No, wouldn't even know how to navigate that.
If I handed it to them.
Yeah, look through it.
Yeah.
Hey, find me a mechanic. Go, right? So.
Yeah. Now I'm like, look it up on the internet.
Yeah. So, well, my second item is a toy. That's not a category. It just happens to be that. It is a My Buddy doll. These came out in 1985 and probably best known for the commercial, the song, My Buddy, wherever I go, he goes, right? Yeah. So this was actually a controversial toy at the time, as there were a lot of people upset because they didn't think dolls should be marketed to boys, but just for girls. But it was the 1980s. People thought differently about those types of things. So, but there was quite an uproar about hauling dolls around. So they were worried about things they probably didn't need to worry about. Yeah. But it was also the inspiration for Chucky from the Child's Play movie. So the little stabby doll from the movies. I never had the doll, even though I'm putting it in there, but I think it was such a pop culture icon and was one of those commercials you'd always remember. And I just think you put it in there and you say, hey, this is something that kids played with.
Wasn't it? There was a female version.
There was. It was Kid Sister.
Kid Sister.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
The only thing I remember about that, I remember the commercial. And I remember the song was
Yeah, the song.
We sang it.
It's embedded in your brain. Wherever I go. They're climbing in a tree fort. They're, And I liked in the commercial, I think, they had the kid wearing the same clothes as the doll.
Yeah,
so
like little overalls.
Yeah, so they were twins.
I think that's an interesting point because that was at a time when, we're talking G.I. Joe, we're talking Transformer, we're talking, so it was, to go something that was a doll.
A doll, yeah.
Yeah, that was, I could totally see that being.
So, I always thought when I was a kid, toys were strange because, we're playing with, action figures, cars, toy guns, all those. And you know what they give girls for Christmas? A microwave and a baby doll and a stove, the Easy Bake Oven. I'm like, now that I'm older, I'm like, they were just preparing them to cook and clean and take care of children from the time they were little kids. So
meanwhile, we were being trained to fight the Russians with Rambo.
Yeah, or maybe
or whoever,
or Cobra Commander, whatnot. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so the My Buddy doll. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I actually, one of my categories is toys, so I'll get that. Nice. That's good. Yeah. My next one is in the category of health and fitness.
Oh, this should be good.
So, I'm making a stretch here, but this one I put a Just Say No t-shirt.
Yeah. Great.
Right?
Perfect.
Just Say No. It was an advertising campaign during the 1980s and early 1990s.
Yeah.
As part of the U.S.-led war on drugs.
Nancy Reagan.
Its goal was aiming to discourage children from engaging in illegal recreational drug use by offering various ways to say no. And then I'm writing that and I think, man, what a difference.
No.
Today.
Yeah.
Here was saying illegal recreational drugs.
Oh yeah.
And now there's a dispensary on every corner.
They would have commercials, PSAs, where a kid would take a he'd smoke a part of a joint and then he'd go jump off a roof.
Yes.
And I'm like, so they would tell you as a kid that's the story they're telling you to get you to avoid doing it.
Yes. The slogan was created by Nancy Reagan.
Yep.
I guess she'd asked a schoolgirl, was offered, what would you say if you were offered by drugs? And the first lady responded, just say no. So then that kicked off the slogan. It was in popular American culture. It was on, she made an appearance on Different Strokes, Punky Brewster, after school program or after school specials. This is interesting. A 2009 analysis of 20 controlled studies on the enrollment in one of the most popular Just Say No programs, and things like DARE, showed there was no impact.
Absolutely not.
On drug use.
Nope.
During this, this is funny. Remember This Is Your Brain on Drugs?
Yes.
Right?
Love that one.
I learned it by watching you.
Perfect one, too.
There's that. Two very widely popular commercials.
Yeah.
I said, what a difference. The changed landscape of drugs and smoking now versus then, which then led me into the whole idea of smoking.
Yeah.
And both of my parents were smokers.
Yep.
Smoked in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody smoked in the 80s.
They did.
You smoked in the car. You smoked in the restaurant. The
everywhere.
smoking section at the restaurant.
For a while, there was in movie theaters, on airplanes.
Smoking in the car, smoking in the house, smoking with the windows rolled up.
Oh, yeah.
The non-smoking section at Sherry's after a basketball game. You'd walk in, and to the left, I think was normal seating. To the right was smoking.
Yeah.
And I'm just appalled. I think now, there was no difference.
No.
The whole place smelled like a casino or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Nothing you could do.
But just a different time, just to show the difference between drug use then and drug use now, and smoking now and smoking then, and everybody was smoking. But
my favorite Just Say No story, Drew Barrymore told it. Her and Corey Feldman were touring with Nancy Reagan, and of course they're notorious 80s drug users. Mm-hmm. And Drew Barrymore would be like, we'd get to a school, and it's an elementary school, and right before we go inside, Corey and I would get high in the car, and then we go inside and tell all the kids, don't take drugs.
Don't do it. Yeah.
I'm like, at least she's honest about it. So we're in there with Nancy Reagan, First Lady of the United States, and we're both just two sheets to the wind. And then we're like, hey, kids, don't take drugs. So, no effect. Yeah. I think it probably had the opposite effect. Oh, let's take drugs.
Yeah. No, I think I read something that said it was almost the opposite.
Well, it's the same as when they put the parental advisory sticker on the CDs and the tapes, because then guess what? That's the tape I want to buy. Yeah. Right. So,
that was my health and fitness category. I also had, I don't think you'll have it, I'm going to say it anyway, Mr. Yuck.
No.
So that whole movement, there was like these movements and, endorsements or whatever for Mr. Yuck. Just say no and, Yeah,
you got me on that one.
Anyway, all right.
So. All right, well, my third item is a plastic lunchbox with thermos inside. Now, the type is up to you. I'm going to go with my Transformers one I had in 4th grade. This was the epitome of being cool at lunch in elementary school in the 80s. You take out your sandwich, your chips, cookie, Twinkie, whatever snack you got. And on the really cool days, I'd get SpaghettiOs in my thermos and a Capri Sun. Yes. And if I didn't need to keep something hot in the thermos, like a soup or a SpaghettiO, maybe some chocolate milk or some apple juice. But yeah, and I know they were metal before, but for me, my memory, I had a plastic one in the thermos. Toting that to school, I thought that was the coolest thing. And everybody would be like, ooh, which one you got? And I had Transformers, and other people had G.I. Joe, and whatever you had. So
that is great. I think I'm just going to reveal one of mine because I had the same thing.
Okay.
It was on my list.
Well, let's wait till we get to that part of your list.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so, I love that pick. Yeah. I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, that signifies, and it just shows kids of the 80s. Like,
yes.
Yeah, that's what we did. I mean, there were kids that just brought the brown bags.
Oh.
So you got that.
Yep.
But I think the plastic kind of took you to another level. So not that I look down on anybody with the brown bag. And a lot of times I ate school lunch too.
Yeah.
Because my parents would buy that roll of pink tickets at the beginning of the year, so I'd also get hot lunch quite a bit.
The pink ticket.
So, yeah, the pink tickets. So.
I don't know. That whole lunch thing was, school is so full of social etiquette and norms and unwritten rules. And I think, when you say, I didn't look down on the kid with the brown bag.
People did though.
There was things we may not have said it out loud, but that.
Well, and when you're in 3rd and 4th grade, you'll just be like, "Why don't you have a lunchbox?"
Yeah. Well, and now things have changed so much that if you, most schools now provide lunches.
Well, yeah.
They're free and reduced lunches. So
Yeah.
most schools give you a lunch. Now it's almost flipped because my youngest daughter, she likes to take her lunch.
Yeah.
She's got a little Yeti cooler thing. She puts soup in it. She eats it up. She loves it. She gets flack for bringing her lunch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's almost flipped a little bit where like if you bring your lunch, you're a little different.
No,
And I'm
no.
like, oh, it's very,
I
very
always
different.
like bringing my lunch. I
Yeah.
bring my lunch to work now, so
Yeah.
it's not a Transformers lunch pail. I wish it was.
You should, though. That'd be better. All right. My next one is from the category of toys. And I put Garbage Pail Kids
Great.
cards,
Perfect.
right? I don't quite remember. I don't know that I had a ton of these. I don't think my parents would let me. But, man, they were it was almost a form of currency. You know, if you knew somebody that had them, you wanted them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was almost a kind of a black market for these things.
So I had a lot of them.
Yeah, I know people.
I used to buy them at the 7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
And
Yeah,
then,
that's what I
so I
remember.
would get those and I would take them to school,
Yeah.
in elementary school. And then I would we'd trade them because I'd have a lot of duplicates.
Yeah.
You know, there were some crazy names on
Oh my
some of those.
gosh,
Like
yes.
there was Atom Bomb, like his head was exploding.
That's funny. That's one of the ones I listed.
I remember that one.
They were released in 1985. They were designed to make fun of the Cabbage Patch Kid dolls. Featured a Garbage Pail Kid character having some comical abnormality,
Yep.
deformity, and or suffering a terrible, painful fate or death. Had a humorous wordplay on the name, but there were two versions. I don't know if you remember that. There were two versions, so it'd be kind of the same picture, but two different names. So there's two versions of it.
Yep.
Let's see. There was a live action movie in '87. Did
Yeah.
you ever see it?
I did, and it's awful.
Yeah, it
really
made
bad.
a 60% profit. It's got a 0% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's considered one of the worst films ever made. Let's see. It was banned in schools, many schools, because of distraction. A mint condition. Nasty Nick.
Nasty
it's the
Nick.
first one. He's a vampire.
Yep.
Goes for $7,500.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, you had
Classic.
Nasty Nick, and his other version was Evil Eddie.
Yep.
And it was Nick dressed as a vampire ready to bite the neck of a female doll.
Mm-hmm.
You had Atom Bomb.
Atom Bomb.
His other version was Blasted Billy.
Yeah.
It's a picture. It's a picture of a kidney's present a detonator as a mushroom cloud is exploding from his head.
Yeah.
Oh, and then some of them I don't even know. In the 80s, so one was it was the two names were one was Schizofran,
Mm-hmm.
then one was Double Heather, and it depicts a girl doll with two heads that appear to be fighting with each other.
No.
But then even Topps was like, that's too much. We can't.
Too much.
So they named it Fran Fran. So there's actually one that's got 3. The worst one I saw, though, it was called Electric Bill or
Yeah.
Fryan Brian. And it was a young boy shown in a prison attire being shocked in an electric chair.
Yeah, I had that card. So I had a lot of these cards.
Oh, my gosh.
I had to hide them because my mom did
Yes.
find a couple and then she took them because she thought they were inappropriate. But I definitely, every time I went to the store, it was like 25 cents or it might even been that.
Yeah.
It might have been 10 cents for a package.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were like baseball cards.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we traded them around.
So the last one's Slobby Robbie.
Nice.
Shows a morbidly obese boy eating ice cream and candy while the scale he sits on explodes beneath him.
Perfect.
There was Oliver Twisted, who also went by Dizzy Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah. The card shows a boy with his arms and legs twisted into knots. And then there was New Wave Dave or Graffiti Pete. And this card shows a boy with an orange mohawk wearing sunglasses and a leather jacket tagging a building.
Nice.
So, yeah. So,
good.
Little pack of garbage
Garbage Pail Kids. That's great. They won't know what to do with them, but it's great.
No.
So.
Well, I think it would cause people to go, because I think even at the time, we were like, what in the world?
Oh, yeah. They were, some of them were
was
rough.
a wacky time.
I love the 80s.
Anyway.
Well, my fourth piece of memorabilia is not going to be surprising to you, but it is the Air Jordan 1 Chicago basketball shoe. This is the basketball shoe that made sneakers a thing. Once this dropped, it became an annual ritual to buy the latest Jordan sneaker. And I remember wanting whatever the latest Jordan sneaker was every time. It shaped sneaker culture for generations. And I mean, it's 2023 and I still buy Jordans and I love them. Mm-hmm. And the Jordan 1 originally dropped in 85. That's how long ago that was. And people still, they resell for crazy amounts of money. In fact, my friend Dustin, whom I've mentioned before, he wore an original pair of this shoe to our 20th high school reunion in 2014. He still had them, and they didn't have holes in them or anything. He still wore them. He said he'd been offered at the mall for people to buy them off his feet.
What do they call it again? Like sneakerheads or something like that.
Yes,
it's a big deal.
Sneakerheads. Yeah, but they were $65 in 1985, and now a pair is usually about $210, $220. And a few years ago, an original, never worn pair sold for $60,000.
That's nutty. No, I think that's a great pick. I didn't even think about Jordan shoes, but Jordan was he was a major force of the 80s.
Oh man.
Sports major force.
Before you can say, and people can track it back, before Jordan's basketball shoe, people wore basketball shoes to play basketball. Mm-hmm. So you wore your Converse, you wore your Adidas to play basketball.
I know where you're going with it.
Once the Jordan shoe came out, it became a thing you wore to wear all the time, not just to play basketball in.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really good point. No, my daughter just turned 11, and she was just a couple days ago, and she was asking for a pair of Jordans.
Nice.
So here we're in 2023, and
that's
an 11-year-old now.
Yep.
Knows that they're sought after.
You can almost argue
sold out. They were sold out. She was bummed because she went to go. I said, "Well, we'll order them for you."
Nice.
She got them, sold out.
So hard. So hard to get a pair of shoes. I promise you. I used to be able to walk into a Foot Locker and buy a pair of shoes. Mm-hmm. Now you can't do that. No. I mean, you got to be there when they drop, and you got to go. But I would say they're more popular now than they probably were when they first came out in 1985. So the Air Jordan 1.
Great pick. I'm going to add that to my my list of, that goes under the fashion category. Good job. My next one comes under the category of food. And under the category of food, I picked a cereal box.
Okay.
No specific cereal box. But the reason I picked it, I clearly remember waking up early hours before my parents.
Yep.
There was something about going to the kitchen, getting a bowl of cereal, walking carefully out to the living room, sitting in front of the TV, less than a foot away.
Had to.
While you ate your cereal. You had to turn down a little bit because I didn't want to wake up Dad. I can remember my dad yelling at me, not sitting so close to the TV.
Yeah, it's going to hurt your eyes.
Hurt your eyes. Yeah. It's going to ruin your eyes.
Yeah. How'd that turn out?
Yeah. I think my eyesight's, other than getting old.
We were all fine. It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Just like when you don't stare at the microwave while it's running because you'll get radiation or something. So.
Yeah, no. And drink orange juice is supposed to help your eyesight or something. I don't know.
Or what about don't go in the water 30 minutes until after you've eaten for 30 minutes? I've done that many times.
I never saw anybody
They
drown.
literally told us we were going to die if that happened. Like,
you were
if you go
drown.
in the water,
you're going to drown.
Yeah,
that's what they told you. No, so here's some of the breakfast cereals of the 80s. It seemed a very, very unregulated industry.
It was awesome.
I mean, it was like, we're just going to put sugar in a box.
I loved them all.
C-3POs, Donkey Kong Jr., Dunkin' Donuts, E.T. cereal, ice cream. Oh, this is my favorite one. Ice cream cone cereal came out in 87. Its mascot was a character named Ice Cream Jones. It came with gumballs inside.
Yes.
And there was a chocolate chip option. So not only are we going to have an ice cream cone flavored cereal, we're going to throw gumballs in it, and we're going to give you a chocolate chip option. Marshmallow Krispies, Nerds, Nintendo, Mr. T, OJ's, which was an orange cereal, Pac-Man, powdered donut cereal, Rocky Road cereal, S'mores Crunch, Smurf Berry Crunch, that whole line of Boo Berry, Count Chocula. We never had those. And then there was Waffle-Os. It was obviously waffles. But the thing that I remember in our house, we went to the Malt-O-Meal route.
Yeah, we did too.
We didn't do the name brand.
Nope, not very often.
No offense to my mom, but she was trying to.
My dad did the same thing. He would tell me they're the same.
I just wrote a couple. So they Malt-O-Meal had Sugar Puffs, which was Golden Crisp, Tostios, which are Honey Nut Cheerios, Tutti Fruities, which is Fruit Loops, Golden Sugar Puffs or Honey Smacks, Cocoa Roos, Cocoa Puffs, Fruity Blasts, which is Fruity Pebbles, Crispy Rice, those are Rice Krispies, Frosted Flakes, which were Frosted Flakes. I don't know how they got away with that. Apple Zings were Apple Jacks, Cinnamon Toasters were Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Chocolate Chip Cookie Bites, Chips Ahoy.
Chips Ahoy.
And Colossal Crunch was Captain Crunch. And then Frosted Mini Spooners was Frosted Mini Wheats. And those are all the ones that I had. We very rarely had the name brand. Every night, I remember one time my mom got us a Star Wars cereal. And that was like, oh my gosh, that was the coolest. But most of the time it was and it came in a bag. They did not come in a box. So,
no.
Anyway. So yeah, something about the cereal world, the morning cartoons, and even the cereal was geared for a kid.
Yeah, they put toys inside of it. I mean, I used to get these little. It was like a octopus, and you threw it against the wall.
Yeah.
But as soon as it hit the carpet, it was dead.
Oh, so
it wouldn't
got all cat and dog on it.
But yeah, no cereal. I still eat cereal today, so I love cereal.
No, I'm a cereal. I will get up and have cereal in a bowl. And
I do it all the time. Yeah. So, well, that's a good one. My fifth item is awesome. It is a big wheel. For anyone that doesn't know what a big wheel is, it is a 3-wheeled plastic bike that's about 6 inches off the ground. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is made of plastic to include the wheels. And the only way to stop it was this one handbrake on the side that would eventually wear a hole in one of the back tires because you'd pull it too much. But you could rumble down the streets in this thing, and the amount of fun I had on this was just ridiculous. Like, I shouldn't have had this much fun on this, but you would be, like I said, 6 inches off the ground, and you're doing wheelies in this thing, and I would go down hills that were not made for that item to go down, and it was like a $10 toy. So if you broke it, which I would always inevitably break it in the middle or wear that tire out, you just get another one. But yeah, I thought I was the king of the neighborhood, just going, kicking butt down the street on this big wheel. Yes. Like, check me out, right?
Right. I like around our neighborhood, you'd outgrow them, and it had that little seat.
Yeah,
it was like a back on your seat, and the thing was only maybe a couple inches tall. So, and they fit into 2 little holes. And then we would outgrow it. You were too big, but you would just take that
off,
and you still ride it.
Oh yeah.
And then the handbrake was the best. And you just do a 180 and
until you pull it too hard and you yank it right off. Mm-hmm. I yanked the handbrake off once, and then you just got to jump off the big wheel.
Well, now they're making adult versions.
Yeah, it's no fun. The one is one. I had a He-Man one. It was green. It was amazing. So I love that thing. So, the big wheel.
Oh, that's a good one.
So
no, those are fun.
They would have.
I never actually had one. I always rode my neighbor kids. I don't think I ever had an actual big one.
I had a He-Man one. I had multiples because again, I wore them out. I used to ride those. We were bike age, but we were in between full bike age. Yeah. But once I got my BMX bike, then the big wheel went to the wayside. So.
Yeah. But I remember we would wear that front wheel just smooth.
Oh yeah.
Like, because trying to catch some good.
Yeah. When I chose the big wheel, I was between two things. I was between the big wheel and a GT BMX bike because the GT was the bike to have. But I went with the big wheel. I went with a little more nostalgia. So.
Yeah, one year I got a BMX bike for Christmas. Yeah, that was killer. All right, that's a good one. My next one is from the category of fashion and clothing, and I picked acid washed jeans.
Awesome, best jeans ever. I think they're back probably, right?
So. That's actually in my notes. It said they're coming back. So the practice exploded in the 80s. It was kind of a punk thing. Guess in 81 they released the first pair. They were called pre-washed.
I would say it was a punk thing right up until Def Leppard wore them in Pour Some Sugar on Me video, and then they became a hair metal like popular thing. So
considered one of the defining trends of the decade. Punk rockers and skinheads would splatter bleach on their jeans and jackets. They called it a snow wash.
Yeah.
And then the marketers got a hold of it and they called it pre-wash, which turns into acid wash.
Acid wash.
But I found one. I don't even remember which place I found it. It said the jackets and jeans combination pair them with high top white sneakers.
Yep.
Think Zach Morris.
Oh yes, perfect.
And I was like, I gotta include.
He always wore Converse Cons. That was his shoe of choice.
Yep.
Because I know a little bit about Saved by the Bell. So.
A little bit,
but that was his shoe of choice, the Converse Con.
So acid really kind of acid washed anything.
Oh yeah,
coat,
fantastic
pants. But I remember having a pair of acid washed Jordache jeans. I don't know why I knew the brand, but I can remember they were Jordache jeans.
I got a pair of two pair of the 501 acid wash, and my mom, when we were buying them, was like, this is just somebody screwing up doing the laundry, right? So,
well, and I read that I didn't know.
She really thought that. She goes, "This is just somebody pouring bleach into there accidentally."
Well, I didn't know that, but I guess there was a whole that was a thing. I mean, I was young, so I wasn't making clothes or whatever, but kids of the 80s would do their own acid wash.
Oh yeah,
they would buy regular jeans and then they would put bleach on them or splatter them.
Just like when you make your own jean shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Just cut them off.
Jorts.
Cut them off and roll them up, and now you got some jean shorts. So.
But anyway, yeah,
Well,
so
that's a good one.
acid washed. I just remember. And my sister, she clearly reminded me the last time she was up that I owned a pair, and they were really tight.
Oh, nice. So you started the tight jeans trend before anybody else.
There's a picture floating around. So.
Well, my sixth item after following up acid wash jeans, which is really good, is a can of Aquanet hairspray. Now, I was not a hairspray kid. However, this product was as important in the 80s as anything else anybody owned. From stay-home moms to the Wall Street boardrooms and, of course, entire rock bands, hairspray was the lifeblood of hair in the 1980s. I mean, the height of people's hair, you can't even imagine. We can't even describe it. So much hairspray was used that it put a hole in the ozone layer. At least they said that's what happened. But from the high bangs to just making sure your hair wouldn't move in a hurricane, hairspray was like the top of 80s fashion. So they could look at that. Not that people don't use hair product now, but that Aquanet hairspray is a pivotal thing of the 80s. And I'm sure there are many of females and males that they couldn't start their day without using a whole can of that stuff. Yeah. So,
gosh, I remember it was more junior high-ish when I started actually like combing my hair. I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Paying mind to what I look like. And I remember using quite a bit of my mom's hairspray, whatever was available on the counter, and just get that hair to do
make
what I
it
wanted
stay
to
where
do,
it goes.
So.
Yeah, Aquanet hairspray.
Man,
perfect.
That's good. No, that was
put a hole in the ozone layer.
Yes. Yeah. Whatever happened to that hole?
Yeah, I think it healed. We stopped using so much hairspray.
Yeah, it's kind of like acid rain, that kind of stuff. Like everybody's worried you're gonna burn to death or whatever. Anyway. Maybe. Okay, my next one's a little obscure, but I'm gonna go with it. So it's under the category of design or style, and it's a thing called Memphis. It's the Memphis style.
Oh, okay.
All right. So you will know this.
Oh, okay.
You will know this once I say it. But before we get into that, let's talk about some classic 80s style. So neon.
Yes.
Brass and wood. Like in your home. Like if you had a wood table with the brass fixtures and stuff, that was everywhere.
TVs were enclosed in wood.
Yes. You had the big TV with the pastels. Palm trees were big in the 80s.
Yep.
Anything palm in your house. Curtains or drapes. Heavy with the floral and the lace. And then carpet in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Which was a thing.
Terrible. Like awful. Whoever thought that was a good idea.
Speaking of, I was going to tell a story. We had some friends that gave my parents a fuzzy. It went on your toilet seat cover.
Oh yeah.
It covered your toilet.
Yeah, we
seat.
had those too.
And it was a Christmas design. And when you closed it, it had Santa Claus on the top. And then when you opened it, it was Santa Claus covering his eyes.
Oh, perfect.
It was great.
Well, at least he wasn't looking at you.
And the fact that we put it on. We put it on every year.
Yeah, you should.
Anyway, so Memphis style is a design movement that began in 1981 in Italy. It's known for bright colors, geometric shapes, bold patterns. It is loud, colorful, and obnoxious. And it was kind of it was born out of a dislike for the minimalist style that was coming out of the 60s and 70s. But you will know it, really where you will know it, is the opening of Saved by the Bell.
Oh, yeah.
So the triangles, the zigzag lines, even our logo, we kind of tried to design it that way. MTV used it on a lot of their MTV logos. Yep. This style was made to oppose practicality, but it couldn't sustain itself because, we had to be practical. But almost 40 years since its influential debut, the design is starting to make a comeback.
Oh, good.
So there's actually a name for that. So when you see that kind of the 80s style with the triangles and the zigzag lines and the neon colors, it's called Memphis style.
Yeah.
And it's actually coming back in vogue.
Everything comes back.
I just thought about Saved by the Bell, and
perfect.
I read an article and it referenced Saved by the Bell, and I was like, oh my gosh.
That's how awesome the 80s and 90s were. They always come back.
People
come back, right? So, well, that's a good one.
Yeah.
For my seventh item, I chose the Swatch watch. Oh. So this was released in 1983 by a Swiss company. These quickly became a fashion craze and a necessity. I remember people would wear multiples of these, like you'd have 2-3 watches on for whatever reason, but it was more of a fashion statement than to actually tell time. So they came in all different colors and designs, because up to that point, I only wore like the Casio watch that might have a calculator on it, or one of those ones you could throw against a brick wall and it wouldn't even break, something like that. But They were really affordable too, which is, everybody could probably get one. But the reason they were so big is because most watches, like I said, were gold, silver, or black. And this let you stand out because, like you just said in your previous, neon colors were a big deal. So just having your standard old-fashioned kind of looking colors, this allowed you to wear more of them and, stand out in the 80s, because that's the big thing. And being noticed and color and being loud was an 80s thing. So
did you ever have a Swatch watch?
I had one, yes.
Did you?
I got it in junior high.
I never had one.
Yeah, it was blue.
Yeah.
So.
No, the accessory that I remember was they weren't jelly
bracelets.
bracelets.
Jelly bracelets.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Interlock them, put two together.
Well, if you were good, you interlocked them. Otherwise, you just wore them. But you had to be good.
Yeah. So. Okay, I'm gonna go. My next one's one you already mentioned, but was the school lunchbox.
Oh, okay.
I just put there was a time when our mom packed our own lunches, and that's kind of gone away. I mean, it just wasn't. You talked about SpaghettiOs in your lunch being like the thing. Mine was my mom had these Tupperware. I believe they were Tupperware, but they were a tall, slender cup. And they had a base that snapped on the bottom.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They had a little snap, a little
remember
closey
those.
top. I think that was Tupperware. And if my mom put pudding in it, oh my gosh, it wasn't a pudding cup. This was pudding my mom made
pudding.
Put it in the thing. They were chilled. Oh my gosh. And when you got one of those, that was the best.
It was.
Here's some things I learned. Metal lunchboxes were discontinued in 1985 by a group of angry parents in Florida when they lobbied against the use in schools, believing they could be weapons.
Yes.
And then the funny thing is, then the last lunchbox that was made, a metal one, was a Rambo lunchbox. So
yeah,
before so then it became I think one of the first plastic ones, but plastic became the alternative. You had to stay current.
Oh yeah.
So like you couldn't show up one year. You couldn't show up one year with the Dukes of Hazzard, and then the next year show up with the same Dukes. Like you had to. You had to up your game.
That was part of starting school. Was I need a new lunchbox.
You had to. Yeah, you had to. You could never carry the same lunchbox one year to the next. It just wasn't done. Okay, here's something I want to talk about. I said pudding. Oh, and if you got a Twinkie or a Ding Dong.
Oh yeah,
that was cool. I had the A-Team. I know I had the A-Team.
Yeah.
Plastic or metal, I don't remember. Dukes of Hazzard, I know I had one of those. The only metal one I do remember have was a TV show called The Fall Guy.
I know The Fall Guy.
Yeah,
of course.
He was a stuntman, and he was a not Bail Bondsman, but he was a
Lee Majors.
Yeah. I know I had a metal one of that. Knight Rider, I know I had one. Transformer, I think those were both plastic. Oh gosh. So one thing I want to. My mom would make my lunch. She would, whether it was in a bag or whatever. I had tuna fish a lot.
I like tuna fish.
They were not refrigerated.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They weren't then.
We didn't put our lunch. It's not. I mean, we brought them to school in the morning. Yeah. Let's say we're eating around 11:30.
Well, she was probably hoping it would stay cold before you ate it. So
we that sat in my backpack or wherever.
You're alive. The mayonnaise didn't turn. You're fine. Don't worry about it.
And nobody thought about that.
No.
Yeah.
No,
anyway,
I like tuna fish.
Yeah. So and then leftover pizza. If you got leftover pizza,
that's
my mom made a meatloaf sandwich. If we had meatloaf the night before, and then she would take the leftovers, make a sandwich.
I feel like you were making a big mess at lunch. If we had
meatloaf, we had meatloaf the night before, I knew there was going to be a cold meatloaf sandwich the next day, and that was the best.
Yeah, I probably just took peanut butter and jelly most days, so you had a lot more extravagant lunches than I did. So. Well, that's a good one. My eighth thing is a mix cassette tape with cassette Walkman, so you can play said tape. The tape will have 5 songs because I don't want to overload the future. These are my choices because to me, this is what the 80s sounded like.
This is not your number one, or this isn't your last one.
No, it's not my last one.
Okay.
So this is just my 8th thing. But these 5 songs to me tell the story of the 80s, and you can pick any 5 you want. But I'm going "Take on Me" by a-ha. I'm going "St. Elmo's Fire" by John Parr. "Beat It" by Michael Jackson, "Wake Me Up Before You Go by Wham, and "Come On Eileen" by Dexy's Midnight Runners. So, like I said, anyone can come up with their own 5, but for me, the future, I'd give them those 5 songs, give them that tape, give them that Walkman, and I bet they would go. The 80s sound, awesome.
Well, let's just keep talking about it because that was my next one.
Nice.
It was a Walkman with a mixtape.
Mixtape, yeah. Right. Gotta have it.
First thing on my notes, I put, as we discussed in a previous episode, making a mixtape was an art.
Yes, very much so.
There was a we had to sit in front of the radio and wait for the DJ to play our favorite song if you wanted to listen to it on tape. So if you wanted to catch it off the radio, you had to, unlike today, unlimited number of songs, playlists you can make instantly. The 80s or 90s mixtape, you had to work with a cassette. You had a finite number of minutes for you to make a musical statement. So you had to, there had to be some intentionality to it. So what's the purpose of this mixtape? What's the emotion you want to convey? Are you making it for a
person?
Are you making it for a girl? Or making it for you? Because if you're making it for a girl, then you want to make sure you hit the right notes, right? The physical media meant you could only fit so many songs to fit on a side, right? More importantly, you had to actually own or have access to the physical copies of the music you were including. Yeah. So you didn't know a guy that had it so that you could burn it, or record it. And then there was a physical element to it. When that tape stopped, you had to get up, flip it. It wasn't until I don't know later I had a tape player that would automatically
flip it over,
or like kind of play the tape the other direction.
Yeah,
I don't know how
fancy.
it did it. I put listening to your favorite music in the 80s required active participation.
Oh yeah, you had to work for that.
And then the Walkman changed the way we listened to it. Mm-hmm. So now we could listen to it where we wanted, when we wanted, no fighting over. I mean, smuggling tapes at the bus stop, listening to Two Live Crew at the bus stop.
Live Crew at the bus stop.
So,
that's a good way to start the day.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So anyway, that was my next one.
Gotcha. Cassettes. Yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Probably be on. Now that's one I think everyone could agree would go into a time capsule. Is a cassette, a Walkman, that type of thing. So, well, my number 9 is along the lines of what you had earlier. You had Garbage Pail Kids. I went with Scratch and Sniff stickers.
Oh, yeah.
I remember these a lot as a kid. I feel like every time we'd go somewhere, we'd pick up a bunch of these in gift shops or places like that. But I had a whole book of Scratch and Sniff stickers, and they smelled like what they were supposed to smell like. But man, some of the stickers they made, they had a skunk one. I'm like, why would you make that? And then they had one that was trash. Again, who wants to smell that? There was a pickle. So for all the good smells, they also included some weird smells, which made no sense. But along the lines of Scratch and Sniff stickers, they also had like those puffy stickers where like things could move around underneath the sticker and stuff. But I just feel like stickers were a big thing in the 80s for a little while there. And, seems like people got a lot of stickers and things like that. I used to like when I got one on my papers back in school, you get a sticker. And you get a good sticker. You don't get the skunk one that says you're a stinker because then you didn't do good on the paper. So Scratch and Sniff stickers.
Well, that's really interesting you said that. My sister and I were talking about it when she was up here last, that some, I think she said like shampoos will include a scratch and sniff type sticker on it. So when you're shopping for it, you can scratch it and smell it. Yeah. And she goes, she will bypass some brands that don't have the scratch and just go to that, nice. And I wonder if that isn't marketing people going, okay, who's our target audience? Like, it's kids that grew up in the 80s that like scratch and sniff. So let's get those 80s Gen X kids, so put a scratch and sniff sticker.
Yeah, one of those strawberries that says like you're berry awesome, and then you scratch it smells good, and that's the way it goes.
Well, and then they had the whole line of markers that smelled. That was the thing, was the
Yeah, we probably shouldn't have been sniffing those, but that's fine. So, well, I think that takes us to your last item for the time capsule.
Yeah. So my last item falls under the category of cultural icons or people.
Oh yeah, we're stuffing a person in.
That's right. And I'm going to put a picture of Michael Jackson.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. For a million reasons, but arguably the biggest star of the 80s. We can talk about Thriller. 35 million copies at the time. It's now gone on to sell 70 million.
Oh yeah.
Revolutionized music, fashion,
dancing.
He
I mean, we could go.
Yeah. So. Thriller, 70 million copies. Bad, 35 million copies. Dangerous, 30 million copies. History, 22 million copies. Off the Wall, 20 million copies. Yeah. I mean, he was everywhere. He one of his Thriller stayed on the top at Billboard for 37 weeks.
Oh yeah.
It went 33 times platinum. Won a record-breaking 8 Grammy Awards. I mean,
now, when you have the picture, what is the picture of Michael Jackson?
Oh, I know which one it's going to be. Yeah. So when I was in elementary school, going down the stairwell of our elementary school, there was a picture of me and some other kids on the playground, and it was up there for years and years. And then when I left, when I graduated 6th grade, where we went to school, 6th grade was elementary, and then you went up. They sent us that picture, and it's me and 3 other kids in the background, and I'm in the foreground, and I'm wearing the classic 80s striped T-shirt, and I'm wearing a button, a Michael Jackson button.
Nice.
And he is wearing I believe it's a white shirt, and he's got a yellow pullover sweater.
Oh yeah,
that's the picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's. I'd probably just throw that button in because I think I still have the button.
The button's good. Yeah. I might have gone with the red jacket.
Yeah.
And the one glove.
Yeah.
And then he had the high with the the high pants with the loafers. I might go with that.
Well, and then he had this whole phase.
It had lots of phases.
Where it was it was almost military.
Yeah.
Like it was like a military jacket with the buttons and it really strange.
That's when he was running around with his chimpanzee.
Yeah. And there's a million things he was everywhere, and he was parodied. He was
the one.
Anyway,
it's good.
Weird Al Yankovic made a career off of parodying just his songs.
Yeah, he could have.
So, anyway. So yeah, I'd be something with the people of 1980s, and he was one of the top people.
And yes, we did get Weird Al onto this episode. Very good. So, well, my last item, although I said these weren't in any particular order, it is my favorite item, and it is awesome. Favorite, the Jordan 1 basketball shoe was pretty good too, but this is the Atari 2600. Okay, so before Nintendo, before Sega, before PlayStations, this is where it was at. This had the classic joystick, the black one joystick with the big red button. You had to sit a foot from the console because the cord was not very long.
Yeah.
And I was all about this system. I remember when we got it, I played Pac-Man, of course. Everybody played Pac-Man, but my favorites were Pitfall, Missile Command, Asteroids. Yeah. Dig Dug was real good. I don't know why I like that game because you dig holes in the ground.
Dig Dug.
But I played it. Yeah. And Zaxxon, it was kind of a space game where you flew But those were my favorites, and I just think it doesn't get any more 80s than Atari.
Oh.
You put the Atari in there, and for all the cool things video games do now, without the Atari 2600, you wouldn't have the rest of those. So
no, I agree. 100%. Yeah, we actually a couple years ago for Christmas we bought our kids I don't know. It looked like a little Nintendo. It's one of those little units that, and then you plug it in, and it's already got these pre-programmed games, and it was all the classic.
So they could see what it looked like.
Pac-Man and Galaga, and that was my game.
I think it's Galaga.
Is it Galaga?
Yeah, that's why you say it. Obviously, you haven't watched Pixels. So.
Oh, no. Yeah. I don't know that I've ever seen that. My kids love that movie. But I remember that being up at the grocery store, and we'd play that for days and days and days.
Loved it.
So,
Dad brought it home. I thought it was the best thing I ever.
I owned Dig Dug. I remember owning Dig Dug. Pole Position.
Pole Position, real good.
That was a good one. That was my favorite one at the arcade.
Rob, that is our time capsule. I would say anything you think we forgot, but I don't think we forgot anything. No. I mean, people could say we forgot a bunch of stuff.
No.
But for me, I think that's a pretty loaded time capsule that's going to give you a pretty good idea of what the 80s look like. So
yeah. No, I love it. I'm just looking at my notes here. Hulkamania.
I'm a real American.
Did you ever have a beeper?
I did not. Ryan had a beeper.
Yeah.
But I did not get a beeper myself. I did not. I was not important enough for people needed to get a hold of me enough that I needed a beeper. So.
Yeah. No. Jane Fonda workout videos.
Yeah, I saw them.
Yeah.
Because you had also the Richard Simmons Sweating to the Oldies. Oh, yeah. Could have had that one, too.
I think Abs of Steel was an 80s thing. So there's that kind of that fashion
closing
movement.
in on there. Yeah.
What about the Thigh Master? Was that an 80s thing?
I thought that was more 90s. But,
yeah. Just in the fashion, if you just go down the list, I mean, these things should just jog memories, right? LA Gear, hair bands,
British Knights,
the knee-high sports socks, the tube socks with the red stripe or blue stripe or yellow stripe.
Oh, yeah.
Shoulder pads.
Gotta look strong.
Rips in your jeans, baggy clothes, parachute pants. Come on now.
Mullets.
Mullets.
Don't forget the mullet.
I mean, we could
go on all day. There's lots of fashion that could be done. So, but yeah, overall, I think that gives us a pretty good. I think that's a pretty good capsule. Put that in the ground, pull it up 50 years from now, and people will be like, I don't know what happened here, but it seems kind of cool, right? So, Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of Totally 80s and 90s Recall. We hope you've enjoyed building a 1980s time capsule with us, despite us probably leaving out another 100 objects that were cool from the 80s. If you like this podcast, please hit that subscribe button. And we know you have friends who love the 80s and 90s just as much as you do, so share it with them. Let them have some fun too, and they can relive all of the things we talked about on this episode. Then head on over to Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us feedback and 5 stars, and that will help the show grow. Rob and I love hearing from you, the listeners, so leave us a message on Instagram, Twitter, or our website, which are all included in the show notes. You can also email us at 80s90srecall@gmail.com with comments or show ideas you may want to hear in the future.
So what's our homework for next time?
Homework for next time. We're going to stay in the 80s because we love it so much, and we're going to talk about our favorite cartoons of the 1980s.
Yeah. No, that, wow. We could have some material there.
Oh, yeah, lots to talk about. All right. So, well, you got anything else?
I have nothing else.
Nothing else. Fancy goodbye.
No fancy goodbye.
All right, later.